Hello, welcome to my cellar. I hope you're all staying safe. As much as I'm trying to get up here a little closer, be a little up close and personal here. By wearing headphones, I'm not shouting as loud. So you might have to turn your volume up a little bit. My wife will sleep upstairs. I hope you're staying safe. All these states that broke early are now having spikes. Please be smart, be safe, wear a mask, wash. Come on. When I sat down to do this, I didn't think I had a lot of things to talk about. But then in looking at the video, a bunch of the comments didn't come through. Normally they come through on my email program, so it's a good thing I go there and look. Now I get some oddball comments on these videos, and this one was a comment on number 127. It said something about at the 8-minute 33-second mark I mentioned adult dice. Well, I went back and listened to that several times, so I'm sorry, I don't know what you were talking about. Was I talking about dice lice? I don't know. Okay, first question, I'll simply. What if Cyclops was a playable race? What kinds of special abilities, skills, and powers would you give them? Well, the only way that I would consider Cyclops to be a playable race is if I had a game setting in ancient Greece and all the players were different kinds of gods. Otherwise, I can see no advantage to having Cyclops as a playable race. Sorry. No, I'm not sorry. That simply is. If you want to figure out how to play him, fine. Now, if you want to go into a Greek mythology setting, well, then there's many, many references that allow you to stat them out. I haven't and don't intend to. Okay. This is a long one. Spirit Island is a game I really enjoy, but it's very difficult to actually play due to a large number of tiny pieces you need to stack up in the zones on the board. There's a lot of games like that. There's a rumor that certain game companies and certain game designers and certain game editors and developers kind of reached all at the same time, really not together in conclave. An idea that maybe rules ought to come with stacking limits. And part of that reason was because some games up to that point might have a stack of 8 or 9 counters, and very often the counters weren't even great quality printing, so they slid all over the board. Rumor has it. And you need to stay. Okay, so yeah, I've played games like that. I understand what you're saying. I've played it several times on Tabletop Simulator, and that works pretty well. Okay, well, I'm not plugging Tabletop Simulator. I don't know anything about it. If they want to contact me and become one of my sponsors, perhaps that will change. But I understand what you're saying. That's why I love Scythe online. Scythe, it's not that it has so many pieces, because it actually doesn't. What it is that there is such a tricky accounting system. At certain points in the game, when the guy on this side of you does something, you may gain something from it. When the guy on this side of you does something, you may gain something from it. And keeping track of that is very difficult, whereas with the computerized does all the minor track keeping for you. Okay, let's see. I recently started, all right, same gentleman goes on. I'm assuming it's a gentleman based on the weird handles that you all use. Recently started playing D&D with a new group through a co-worker, and that group includes a young man, 13. He's a joy to play with. He's not as serious as the other players, and that's been good at times, but also an issue in a few instances. He does really bring the big energy to the game, though. Feels like we have the privilege of being there while he develops his style and learns. And that's a really cogent observation, and I applaud you for that. Isn't it fun to watch? He's not as serious, and okay, there's some times when it doesn't work out with the group, but that's part of the personal learning. So many times in years past, I've had people come up and regale me, and I don't mean this sarcastically, mesmerize me with stories of how they developed speaking skills, confidence, and whatever. And to be able to watch this individual learn, pick up social cues, find out when, no, that wasn't a good thing for the party to do. Yeah, enjoy it. And hopefully he'll develop into a great player and continue being a contributing member, not just jolting energy, but developing ideas and whatever. And another person commented also, this follows my comment on the two young men and their mom in Ireland that I had in my game on Friday, or it might have been Thursday. Anyway, I think it was Friday that I had at a game I ran for North Texas. And I found playing when we were kids, and that's the difference I found playing when we were kids and now as adults. Enthusiasm. Well, as it so happens, you'll remember that last time I told you about John and James, and they're from Ireland, and they were in Ireland with their mom, and they played with me. I had them again on Sunday night. And instead of trying to burn everything this time, they had their spikes and hammers, and they tried to chip everything and shatter. But they did put the spike to some good use and climb up some things and that. But again, they were a hoot to play with. They were so much fun. Mom was there supporting and playing along and doing better, I might add. She didn't have nearly as many catastrophic die rolls. So and one of the hooters from the first game had a couple of catastrophic die rolls, and so he got his just desserts. But I had him again, and I've asked the convention if they can provide me with a home address, because their father is normally a regular attendee, because I'm going to send them something. They were so much fun to play with. And somebody here says I wasn't able to get signed up to NTRPGCon just yet. I'm still going through. Anyway, there were many. Well, let me rephrase. Unfortunately, some people had problems getting in, getting registered, getting to the right places. All in all, I believe it went very well. It's gone to the point where I believe there's I'll simply say this, and Doug doesn't know this yet either. There's a movement afoot to do a regularly scheduled virtual North Texas RPG Con thing, and I'm going to run once or twice a month games on it. I think it's going to be, like on weekends, or I don't know how it's going to go yet. It's all still in the developmental stages, but I think I'll do it. I'll run a couple of months of games for Texas. They're looking to do a kind of a branded presence, and I think that's great, because we're learning that playing remotely can still be a lot of fun, because it's kind of making us flex our imagination muscles a little bit. And I think that's always a good thing. I think anything that makes you think is a good thing. So yeah, that's going to be happening. And I'm still planning to do my Theater of the Mind games. I've got one gentleman that's already made a payment, and I haven't been able to get the game off the ground yet, and so I certainly haven't spent it. And some of those questions that I found, here's one that follows along with what I was just saying. 3 great things about Theater of the Mind are, and that's what we're now playing, unless you're on something like tabletop or whatever. But for the Discord games and the Zoom games, 3 great things about Theater of the Mind are: the referee can describe situations that miniatures and props just can't illustrate. Point 1, good. It's cheap, also good. 3, the players tend to listen up. Can you think of more? Well, yes, I can think of one thing, but it's kind of an abstract. All your points are very good. There is kind of an abstract there. It is probably the most intimate communal thing a group of strangers can do. Let me describe that. Before anybody gets outraged. I can sit and tell you that you are in a cavern. And the cavern is approximately 90 feet, roughly, in diameter, and it's jagged, and there's little ins and outs along the wall. And the stone that the cavern is made of seems to have some sort of reflective quality, and the light from your torches and lanterns causes it to flicker like a million fireflies overhead. If you had the power, if you had a machine that could freeze that moment in time and look inside the brains that were at the table that all heard that, none of the pictures would look alike in their mind. They would all share the characteristics of size and sparkly, and the fact that it was irregular, but none of them would be exactly the same as if you had held up a picture. And I'm not denigrating or knocking in any way holding up a picture or doing the terrain, some of the lovely stuff like Stefano Corny does with Dwarven Forge. Certainly, I know there's lots and lots of people that enjoy playing with that, and I think I probably would too, having seen some of his. But back to the topic, all those pictures would be slightly different. Each would be that person's filtering and processing of the words that you cast down into the air. That way, that's what in that way, it's very intimate in that each is different, but also, at the same time, by the same token, you're all drawn into this similar conjured, conjoined, imagined situation. Don't mean to get too heavy, as we used to say. Let's see, where was I? Okay. I don't know what this is about asking questions for friends, but I keep getting this. My friend has some board game questions. First, it was my wife. Has some board game questions. Not the same person. Board game questions for you. Do you have an unfinished board game that you are tinkering with but can't or haven't yet finished? Nope. My skills in board games lie more in development. That's what I've got experience with, is development. I don't have any. No, that's not the way my head works. Let's see. Supplemental question. If so, what is, all right, it's not so. This person also asked, what do you think of Gary Gygax's fantasy 3D chess game? And do you played it? Supplemental question, what do you think of chess variations? Are there any that you really like? No. I'll answer the last one first. No. I don't play chess anymore. I gave up chess when I discovered war games. Seriously, in 6th grade. I'd been playing chess for about 3 years. And I found, I'd been reading books and memorizing openings and all that stuff, and I found that kind of boring. You know, certain person across you does this, you do that. Where I like the ebb and flow. I have even the old crappy combat results table with a 6-sider. I still like the uncertainty of it. I gave up two-dimensional chess. I've not ever been interested, not even when I watched them play it on Star Trek. I've never ever been interested in playing 3D chess. Just not my thing. Don't play chess. Okay, so somebody asks, at higher levels, does the class system and the stat limitations become meaningless? Should this be avoided? And what is the reasoning there? Well, first thing you always have to remember is, as developed in the first edition, which is where the root of this entire system still resides deep in the earth, as envisioned, 12th level was retire and carve out a little dukedom or barony all of your own in the wilderness. 20th level was the skill level you might give to an evil bad guy wizard that you had to fight just to show how powerful he was. So those original levels were applied in that framework. And no, I ignored most of them. How could I not? In the second game I ever played, my dwarven second, third level character or whatever got promoted and became like a prince of way above 5th level, we'll put it that way, in terms of power and what he commanded and all that. So obviously I thought, well, these rules are dumb. Look what happened to me at Gen Con in a game I believe was run by Rob Coons. I do believe there ought to be limitations. There's another question here later on that I'll go into deeper detail on. Class system, stat limitations. I think the I think stats are important in that they got to meet the minimums. And the last thing I'm going to talk about tonight's all about having meeting minimums and stats. Let's see what else we have here. We have it. Okay. Yeah, I got a bunch of pages because I found those other things here. So bear with me. Okay. Questions about OD&D. Can wizards develop warrior skills at higher levels? No. Supplemental questions. Why don't wizards have spell to make them more like warriors or other classes? Because they have to have a limitation. Nobody can do everything unless you're talking about a supreme being or a deity. And doesn't this seem to be a very natural desire for a wizard? Why would it be? Why would a wizard want to develop offensive spells or skills, weapon skills? If I were a wizard, I'd want to develop a shell that I could, rub the thing on my finger or the charm on my wrist or whatever, and have an impermeable shell around me, or at least to my front, or whatever. Why spend all that time developing muscles and weapon skills when you can make yourself immune to them? My idea. That's my rationale behind that. Everything can't be everything, except one class. And I'll come to that later. All right, another question from a certain different person. I have a 6th level magic user. We have a small group of players where they play on Discord. I rolled up 2 extra player characters, fighters, with the idea that they could act as my wizard's helpers. Your thoughts? And to be honest, initially I was thinking of them as 1st level player cannon fodder. Glad to take a sword in the gut any time for you, wizard. Well, why not? I believe that NPCs and hirelings are grossly overlooked and neglected in the ways I see the game being played today, and particularly in some of the newer editions. I will fall back on another well-honored, time-honored, well-known example of NPCs and hirelings that's taken to a far, far extreme level, and that would be the Knights of the Dinner Table and their pack bearers and their their torch bearers and their mule skinners and all the people that they hire as NPCs. Now, Jolly Blackburn, the author and artist, has taken that to the extreme, because the comedy is always found at the extremes of things. But there's no reason not to have a regular, a few, again, depending upon the DM. This is up to the DM to decide. Myself, if I had a game with 6 or 7 player characters, here in the local area, and we were of such a trust level that if one of them couldn't make it, they trusted the rest of the group to run their character, as we used to do way back when sometimes, then I would see no problem with having NPCs available, and perhaps even permanently hired. For certainly permanent applies to if you're getting together 7, 8, 9, 10 times, all in the pursuit of a single adventure. Yeah, you would have those guys there the whole time. They can provide skills or services that the player characters can't. We used to rely on clerics that would charge usurious rates for their skills to go along on adventures, to provide cures and whatever. Of course, as DMs, we use these guys to bleed money out of the campaign. I think there's lots of things you can use NPCs for. You can use NPCs for, hire thieves as NPCs. You can hire if you're a group that doesn't rely heavily on magic, you can hire a wizard for a significant cut or first divvies on the magic stuff, or whatever mechanism you work out for the division of the spoils. I certainly like using NPCs to augment the group, especially specialists. Thinking about them as 1st level cannon fodder, well, Jolly's also spoken about that, and in certain positions in their history, the Knights have not been able to hire NPCs because of their reputation for getting them killed off. And they had a pack ape who hunted them down to get revenge in a story arc that was pretty good. So, NPCs can be a lot of fun, as long as they're not taken to extremes. And for a group to hire somebody that's really much higher level, it'd be more likely that they'd be paying them to do something than them hiring them. And if, say, a group of 5s and 6s is trying to find an 8-level magic user to hire to go take on, some bad scene, getting somebody to be even interested in it, and if they were, it would be completely within a DM's right to demand a lion's share of any spoils and first dibs on all the magic, etc. But again, if you need to hire the outsider to accomplish the deal, you do what you have to do. Now, here's a strange question. Have you been tempted to edit self-published fantasy novels that you've gotten through fandom? How do you deal with that? I'm not sure I understand the question exactly. I generally don't. I generally don't read well, for one thing, people don't send me a lot of stuff. Good. I don't do editing work for free. I generally read people that have been published by a press that's able to produce a quality product. There's lots and lots and lots of small presses out there that are printing some really good authors. But do I want to do it? No. I have a short story that's published in an anthology, and that's fulfilled all my literary ambitions. As far as straight writing goes, I do my other writing in my game stuff. Have I ever used the pseudonym Kim Task? No. Have I used pseudonyms, and what would prompt you to do so? Well, I'll answer that one first. Yes, I have. Back in back in the early days, when I was trying to expand the strategic review to more pages than ever, I wrote a couple of pieces under different names, simply because I thought it looked tacky to be the editor and writing a bunch of stuff in there. Then it looked like I was just self-publishing. I was mainly filling space. Probably the best piece I did of that nature was What to Do When the Dog Eats Your Dice. Let's see, where else do we go? What was it like to be interviewed for Michael Whitwer's Empire of Imagination? Oh, no slight to Michael. As I recall, he was very professional. We had a nice chat. I've been interviewed for a bunch of films and books and stuff. He seemed to be a nice guy. The book came out okay. I liked it. No, I don't have any gripes. And do I have a beef with Wizards of the Coast? And are you able to elaborate? No, I don't have a beef with the Wizards of the Coast. I have virtually nothing to do with the Wizards of the Coast. I participated in a charity event for a bunch of people that are associated with 5e, and Joe Manganiello, please, the guy in the picture, that great big dude in the picture up there behind the top of my head. That was a charity auction thing, and I got flown out there. I have no beef with them. They've never said anything to me, and I've never said anything to them. And on all the lists of the monsters they can, people can and cannot use, they have never thought to try to take away the belay from me. They've always acknowledged that it was mine. So no, I got no beef. No more beef with them than any other company that occasionally puts out a bow wow game. I do find it interesting that they just banned a bunch of not woke cards from the game. Okay. On your next video, can you talk about the Bard? Who made it? And why was it an option class? Doug Schwegman wrote it. I'm pleased to say that Doug was one of the original players in my original game, and he played a Bard type guy. And because remember, we played, we didn't see any limitations in that. So if he wanted to try singing his way out of a jam and it worked, well, then the next time, that's the way stuff happened. And yeah, he probably somebody play tested the first druid out of my group, in my group too, as I recall, or was playing a druid type. But anyway, Doug Swagman wrote it. It was damned hard in first edition to become a bard. As I recall, you had to go to Fighter 5, then switch over to Thief and go to 3, third level. And then I think you went to Cleric, actually a Druid, and at that point you were a neophyte bard, which meant that you were at least a level 5 fighter. And in those days, level 5 was nothing to be sneered at. You had some decent lockpicking and thieving skills, and then you had some clerical training. Those guys were tough. Dan Marcotte, who is known as Dan the Bard, look him up, has a hilarious song called Bard Camp, Takeoff on Bandcamp. And he talks about the second edition Bard who picked a fight with the first edition Bard and got his butt kicked because he had forgotten or didn't know that first editions had to be fighters to begin with. The thing about the Bard, and I've totally agreed with it, it had a very stringent set of stat requirements. You had to be a sterling all-around specimen, which should have limited to a great degree the number of people attempting to become one. Just like psionics. But that was the thing of the Bard. Once he became proficient as a Bard, this guy was a mainstay of any group. He had decent fighting skills. He had some thief skills. He had some druidic clerical abilities. This guy's a big contributor to any party's success. And that's why. That's why he was an option. He was going to be really hard. And as an option back then, that was my second edition of Strategic Review, I believe, that I published. Back then, everything was suggestions. They weren't rules. And if a GM didn't want bards, he just said no. And I believe that answers all the questions that I had. Look for North Texas RPG Con to be making some announcements in the coming weeks about what they're going to do. I'm going to be getting my Theater of the Mind games up and going. I'll be running some games for Texas, I think. See how it's all going to shake out. And in the meantime, please, if you're in one of those 9 Republican governor states that have had the recent upsurge, please don't listen to those people that value business more than they value your life and your health. Wear a mask out in public, social distance, sanitize, wash your hands a lot, cough in your sleeve, and please stay safe. Dodata Gobi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. PSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Tight with tramp under a tree, high as could be.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon